Hi everyone. Today's topic we'll be discussing is how to use the dinghy safely, as well as the safety equipment aboard the dinghy. So I remember as a kid, I would have to walk or ride my bicycle to wherever I would like to have gotten, to friends' houses or meeting up with other people. And often my mom would forget me after school, so I would have to again walk to friends' houses until she would collect me. So when I was growing up, I couldn't wait to finally get my driver's license, and this would give me that freedom, coming and going, getting to places when I would like to. This is the same with boat life or boat ownership. Driving a dinghy is a crucial skill which saves time and effort, may actually assist you in aiding other people along the way, such as other sailors who've had breakdowns of their dinghy, potentially kayakers or SUPers, even swimmers who've become fatigued. So today's video will be the basics of how to operate a dinghy. So with regards to safety, a few things which are essential to have on you or on the dinghy while it's in operation. First and foremost, a life jacket. You need to know how to use it, how to correctly put it on, and make sure that all the straps are neatly tucked away so that there's no chance of them getting caught in anything, and the worst of all being the propeller. Another good thing to have aboard your dinghy is a toolkit. Inside you should have a shifting spanner, some sockets, some screwdrivers, and other odds and ends which are specific to dinghies, maybe another drain plug, and a spare keel switch. Also, to have cloths or towels aboard, that's great for any potential fuel leaks, which you can just clean up and keep the dinghy clean and dry. Another very important item is a baler, which we have aboard our dinghy, and I will point it out when we're aboard. But basically it's just a little bucket which you can take out any water which may be coming over from waves into the dinghy. We also have on our dinghy a 3.5 kilo anchor, foldable anchor, which helps us to anchor off of the shore. So we'll throw this off of our bow, come back closer to shore, and then we'll tie a line to the shore. And these fold up nice and compact. And we've also included about 1.5 meters of chain just to add a bit more weight. Some other safety equipment which is often overlooked are flares, as well as a fire extinguisher on your dinghy. Truth be told, we don't have it, and I haven't come across many people that do actually keep these aboard. But of course, rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Without this, which is called a keel cord or a keel switch or a dead man cord, you won't be getting very far. So always remember, you need to have this before you jump on your dinghy. And what this does is immobilizes the dinghy or cuts the engine, and we'll look into it a bit further in a while. Just my recommendation is, often you see this cord attached around the wrist of the driver. Yes, okay, it's been done like this for some time, but there is always the possibility that it slides off. So my personal preference is to put it around my thigh, and well, we haven't had any issues, but I haven't gone overboard yet either. This to me seems like a much more secure method of... Right, so just touching on before, this is a baler, and what it is essentially is just a bucket to take out any water and scoop it overboard. You also want to make sure that you don't have any tripping hazards around the inside of your hull. for obvious reasons. So if you have oars, fenders, things like that, you want them placed in a secure position where they're not going to roll around. And another thing is, you don't want to have any sharp objects which could potentially puncture the tubes of your dinghy. So sharp objects such as knives, fishing hooks, spear gun, spears. If you do have them on your dinghy, of course you want to keep them concealed and not have the sharp ends exposed. Alright, so the different components which make up a functioning dinghy with an outboard motor are of course the fuel. So here we have our fuel tank. It's connected by this push-on fitting, and all you need to know about this is always have adequate fuel for the trip that you're doing, plus 50% if you can. You know, maybe you would want to carry a spare jerry can of fuel. Our outboard is a two-stroke, and the main difference which that brings is you need to add two-stroke oil to the fuel. So if you have a two-stroke, don't forget that. Alright, the other feature here is, just come up close, is on the cap it's got a little breather, and that you open and you can hear it hissing. This is when the fuel's being used. Obviously you need to allow air into the tank to furthermore allow fuel out of the tank. So when it's in use, you want to have this cap slightly open, allowing air in and also expanding air out. Alright, then the main feature is of course the outboard. Bear in mind, I'm sitting, according to many people, on the wrong side and using the wrong hand. Okay, that's the disclaimer. Also, I'm not a professional. That's the second disclaimer. So I would suggest, if you're learning, starting out, you can sit this side, and then you'll be working the controls, the throttle, with your left hand. All right. I grew up using my right hand. I've come from motorbikes and I'm right-handed, so that's it. I'm not going to go about changing things now. This is the safest way for my crew and I. Alright, so here we are. Starting from the top, this is the pull cord, which ultimately starts the engine. You do it by pulling out. Alright, so we'll obviously come to that later. This is the fuel line running from the bow up into ultimately the carburetor. Okay, and you want to be sure that this line is primed. So this is the little priming bulb, and you'll squeeze it until it is firm. If it's soft, it means that the line isn't pressurized, so you'll squeeze it until it is nicely firm. Alright, moving on. Here we have this little switch which you pull out and then push in. This is the choke, and this is used to assist the motor in starting, particularly on colder days. So for us, we've had to use it throughout the Mediterranean winter, but at this point in the summer we don't need it. Okay, so next we have this red. It's not a button because you don't push it in. In fact, you pull it out. And it's red because it serves a purpose. So if you can see, it pulls out, yeah, and it retracts back in. And that's where this little piece clips into. So at the moment, because that is pulled out, it means that it's mobilized and we would be able to start the engine. However, we're missing something. That something is to connect the dead man cord or the kill cord to our body, particularly the thigh in my case. Alright, so here we have our gear lever or gear selector. Directly up is in neutral, and then simply pushing it back would be reverse. Pulling it forward is into forward gear. So neutral, reverse gear, back to neutral, and then into forward gear. Okay, if we have a look down the side here, there's a small lever. Is it focusing?
I can't see.
There's this small lever, and that helps us to drop the outboard shaft. All right, so we can lift it. There's the first stage, and then the second stage, which is completely out of the water. And then to drop it again, we simply lift the outboard slightly higher, hold that lever up, and then keep it maintained up and drop the outboard slowly. All right, then of course the business end of things is the propeller. The propeller can obviously do damage, so you don't want to be anywhere near it while the motor is running. And also, before you head off and put the motor into gear, you want to make sure that there are no ropes or any free hanging debris or items in the water which can potentially get into the propeller and foul the propeller. Alright, finally, regarding the outboard, I believe I've covered mostly everything except for the throttle. We'll get to that now. We're talking about the transom clamps. So these hold the outboard onto the transom, and we want them secured nicely. And we've also taken the secondary precaution of putting a piece of chain, bolting it onto, well, not bolting, locking it onto our dinghy. So if for whatever reason, mainly it's due to theft, although we haven't had any issues, if somebody gets the clamps undone, which is fairly easy, they're going to have to bring bolt cutters along with them. All right, so let's talk quickly about the throttle, and then we'll move on to starting the outboard engine. So the throttle, what it does is it's a twisting throttle. So simply you twist it and that accelerates, you twist it back and it decelerates. It decelerates. All right. And just a touch, come zoom in here. You can see there's a rabbit and a tortoise. So obviously the tortoise is slow, the rabbit is fast, and then just 1/3 of the way between them there's this little starting signal, and that's where you want the throttle to be when you start the outboard. However, our outboard is tuned so that it will start in the tortoise mode. Okay, so its idling rate is a bit higher than the norm. That's my takeaway. So we don't need to accelerate or throttle up too much in order to start. All right, so once again, this system is live. Basically, as soon as we pull this, we should get a ignition. So we'll clip on our kill switch. All right, so we have our throttle in the minimum position. We have our gear selector selecting neutral, and we have our choke off because it's a nice hot day and we've already used the outboard today, so we won't be needing the choke assistance. The choke just forces a bit more fuel into the carburetor, and that will assist it in starting on the colder mornings. However, if you use the choke too much, it may flood the carburetor with too much fuel. So what you'll need to do then is push the choke back in and open your throttle all the way, and then you'll need to pull give it a good few pulls, and that will force air into the carburetor, and that should help equalize and get the adequate fuel to air ratio, and then you should be able to start the outboard. Alright, so when we're using the choke, we'll just pull it out, give it 2 pulls on this, hopefully we get a start, otherwise we'll put the choke in and try a couple more times, and we'll repeat that process until it starts. Alright, once it does start, the choke goes back in and we let the engine warm up for a few minutes. Good. Okay, back to actually starting. I digress. We won't be using the choke. Again, we're in neutral, minimum throttle, and just one other safety point before we go any further. Before you pull, you want to make sure that you have enough space and you're not going to elbow anybody as you're pulling. Okay, so you just want to tell anybody else aboard, guys, I'm starting the motor, give me my space, and then, you heard me? And then one pull. And there you have it. You should get slightly higher idle, and then the idling should drop. So guys, something which is crucially important with these outboards is to make sure that, because they are water cooled, they're cooled by the seawater, at the bottom on the foot of it, near the propeller, it has an impeller which draws in water, and then it will have a little jet just about over here which will be expelling water. And every time you start the outboard, you need to make sure that that is in fact happening and that it isn't blocked. If it is blocked, then you don't have effective cooling, and that's going to lead to seizure of the motor. Alright, so I'm just going to start the engine and you can have a look to see what that looks like. One other thing, I mentioned earlier that this isn't a button. It's not, but also it is. Alright, so its main function is to serve as an emergency stop for the engine, but also with this clip attached and you just want to stop the engine but you'll be starting it again shortly, you can simply push this inwards and it should cut the engine. So I'll just demonstrate that. Right, it's attached to me. Throttle is on the minimum it can be, and we are in neutral. So I'll give it a pull. And now I'll just be pushing the red knob. And you can see that it cuts the engine. Again, starting. And now I will pull this and show you how it cuts the engine again. Alright guys, so we're currently in neutral at the moment. Just something to bear in mind is that to turn a dinghy you need to have some acceleration, but while saying that, we always want to be gentle with the throttle. We don't need to do anything abruptly. Alright, so when you're learning, I would just suggest taking things very slowly, being conscious of what you're doing, and exactly that, not rushing anything. Alright, so we're just going to go through driving straight forward, turning, maneuvering, and a bit of reversing. And we need to bear in mind that whenever we change from neutral into either gear or back to neutral, we want the engine to be idling. We don't want any sort of acceleration or throttle. Okay, so at the moment it's idling, and you'll hear it happily click into forward. There you go, and we're underway. away. This is it, we're moving and we're not doing anything, just idling and maintaining the tiller straight. Right, to turn is a bit counterintuitive, so if you turn it towards your body, you'll be moving away from your body. Alright, we'll straighten up. And then to turn to port, we'll have to push the tiller to starboard. Right, and the turning radius is very small with outboards because you can turn them right over.
There's Jem for reference.
You can see we're pretty much turning on the spot. Right, straighten up. And then in most situations you'll need to counter the initial momentum that you have. So if we are hard over turning to starboard and then we want to go straight, there's still slight momentum turning to starboard, so you might need to counter that, and then you will get your forward momentum once again. Right, going back into neutral, simple as nothing on the throttle. Alright, just idling, clicking into the gear into neutral. And then to reverse, straight forward, again. You don't want any acceleration. Let it come all the way down onto an idle. And then you'll just click into reverse. Reversing is a bit different. It takes a bit more getting used to than going forward, simply because it's a bit less natural, I imagine. And you might need to vary your maneuvers to maintain a straight line. But once again, turning is very effective. And it doesn't take much to get you going. Right, we'll go into neutral. And that's the basis of maneuvering a dinghy. So just bear in mind that you always want to have your keel cord attached to you. You always want to be cautious in what you're doing, and you don't need to be abrupt in anything. Nothing hard on the throttle. Even getting onto the plane, which we'll do shortly, you don't need to bang the throttle to get onto plane. You can gradually build up speed, because the whole purpose of planing is to be more efficient in the water. So you don't want to use all this throttle and fuel effectively to get onto the plane where you're meant to be saving the fuel. So we're going to do our best to get the view of the boat and the water as we get onto the plane, and we're going to do so by just gradually increasing our throttle and our speed. Alright guys, so that's it. We did manage to get onto the plane, but I wanted to show that once you're on the plane, you can actually come off of the accelerator a bit and you'll remain on the plane, and that is when the hull of the boat is basically skimming on top of the water as opposed to displacing water, and that's when there's less resistance, therefore you're using less fuel, you're going faster, and essentially that's what you're looking for in a
Dinghy ride.
in an efficient dinghy. Yeah, so at the end of the day we probably need to look at getting a few more horsepower or a longer dinghy. Yeah, but what we've got is what we've got for now, and with just myself and 40 liters of water when I'm collecting water, it performs really well. It's just with Danah's 50 kilos it's just a bit much, so yeah. 50 kilos, come
Plus
on.
the doggies.
So what we're doing here is we're approaching the shore under power with just enough speed to reach the shore. Then we will turn off the engine and lift it, and we can step off the side of the dinghy and maintain the dinghy straight. From there we simply pull the dinghy up onto the shore. We take the painter or the rope and we can then tie it up. Alright, so this is where we will tie off the dinghy to a point such as here, and we'll just use a simple bowline or a round turn and 2 half hitches to do so. It's a bit short, our line, so I'll show you on this. This of course wouldn't be an ideal point to tie off onto, but we'll go a round turn and then put the 2 half hitches onto that. Alright, so it's as easy as that. When it comes to leaving the shore, we attach the keel cord first, and we have the dinghy already untied, and then we make sure that everything is secure within the dinghy and we push it off. And once we're ready, we simply give it a good push and hop aboard. Make our way to the engine. Once we have the depth that we need, we can drop it either onto the half down position or fully down, and we don't need to mess about because we've already got the keel cord attached to the outboard. Slip it into reverse, get a bit more depth while we turn, and then into forward gear, and off we go.
This is a demonstration of how to return to the boat.
As we can see here, I'm taking a wide turn on approach to the boat, selecting where I would like to tie up and aiming straight for it while steadily but slowly moving forward. I then select neutral, and once I'm next to the boat, I take off the kill switch and make contact with the boat.
And how to tie the dinghy.
We'll just cleat it off. Alright. Yeah, anyway, just that disclaimer again, I'm not a professional and I'm not an instructor of these water sports as such. I do have an instructing background in scuba diving, so I can lay these things out and put across the information. So anyway, let me know if I did decently, an okay to fair job. If it was horrible, let me know. Why not? Also, I was not wearing the life jacket during the filming, purely because it's quite bulky and we have calm conditions today, so I didn't feel it necessary. But of course, if you are just learning, always get into the right habits and wear your flotation devices, as well as take all the precautions that you can to keep yourself and whoever is aboard safe. So guys, if you have anything to add, constructive criticism, some feedback of how we could improve, go ahead and let us know. And other than that, I would say that's gonna bring us to the end of the video. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye bye.